This is Apple's watch.
But the Apple Watch values your time.
The watch is gorgeous in a surgical, sterile, sci-fi kind of way.
Quickly and more efficiently, I wanted to see if this watch could free me from my phone.
There's so much to say about the Apple Watch. It's Apple's first new product in 5 years, and it's the first one developed after Steve Jobs died.
The Apple Watch arrives with high expectations and a steep mountain to climb. It has to be both a utility device and...
Oh boy, it's the Apple Watch. There's so much to say about the Apple Watch. It's Apple's first new product in 5 years, and it's the first one developed after Steve Jobs died. There's a lot riding on this thing. Apple introduced it at a celebrity-filled event last year so huge they built an entire temporary building for it. You can spend anywhere from $350 to $17,000 on it. It's crazy. It's a big deal. So what's it like? First, the Apple Watch doesn't look anything like Apple's other products. It's rounder and friendlier than the iPhone or the MacBook. It really looks more like a first-generation iPhone than anything else. It's also pretty heavy. It's just under 3 ounces, and it feels like one solid object in your hand. It's just way nicer than any other smartwatch out there. It also has more stuff. Unlike Google's Android Wear, which basically extends your phone, the Apple Watch feels like an entire little computer on your wrist, and that's both good and bad. Unlike every other smartwatch, the Apple Watch is all about physical controls. It literally has buttons and knobs, and it takes a while to figure them all out. There's the digital crown scroll wheel, which is also a button, the screen itself, which uses a new technology called Force Touch to act as another button, and there's a side button, which is especially confusing since it looks just like the iPhone sleep button, but actually opens the Communications app. Apple's making a big deal out of the digital crown, which lets you smoothly scroll and zoom on the watch without your fingers getting in the way of the screen. And it's definitely nice to have. After using the watch for a while, I looked for the crown on my phone. But you can also just scroll through lists on the watch just fine with your finger. And in general, anything you can do with the crown, you can do on the screen. The back of the watch has a raised area for the optical heart rate sensor, and it's also where the magnetic charging cable connects. The cable is nice, but I wish Apple had included a nice dock, like Motorola does with the Moto 360. Of course, all of the real action with the Apple Watch happens on the screen, and the Retina display is beautiful. It has super bright colors, great viewing angles, and inky blacks that make it seem like it blends right into the sides of the watch. It's great. My only complaint is that it's not laminated super close to the watch face. There's definitely a small air gap that you can see from time to time. Once you start using the watch, it's pretty obvious that there's actually 3 different things going on. The first and most important is that the watch face is an entire little smartwatch platform all by itself. It's where you're going to spend the most time. There's really only a few basic templates, but you can customize the details on almost all of them. There's not really a great digital watch face though, and you can't create your own or buy new ones like you can with Android Wear. It's a missed opportunity and Apple has to be working on it. But the watch face is really about 2 things: notifications and glances. When you get a notification, you'll feel a slight tap on your wrist, but the screen won't light up. When you actually look at your wrist, the watch will first show you what kind of notification you've got, and if you keep looking, it'll show you the actual information that came in. This is great if you get a lot of notifications, and you're almost certainly going to get a lot of notifications because the iPhone app that controls everything comes set to full blast by default.
So we're really looking forward to launching this new thing. We're thinking a lot about the future. We want to bring in food and technology and kind of think about how we can, spin that into a really great package, and we were wondering if the Verge was interested in collaborating with us.
So this is an email from a coworker who is not this coworker. I don't have time to answer this right now because I want to pay attention, so I'm just going to dismiss it for later.
So we thought that this was something that could be a really great collaboration for the Eater and the Verge, and we were wondering if you guys had any thoughts on it.
Yeah, there's so much. This is an Instagram-like. And here's the real problem with the Apple Watch right now. The settings for how you control what notifications go from your phone to your watch aren't very granular. It's kind of all or nothing for every app you have on your phone. So I'm getting all kinds of notifications I don't want, and to turn them off, I have to go through a huge list and pick which one's yes or no. And so really all I'm doing is knowing more about what's happening on my phone than ever before.
Is there somewhere that you need to be right now?
No, I really want to talk about this. I think it's such an exciting project. There's so much we could do together.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that we're thinking about is the modern kitchen.
This is another text from my wife. So now I'm not paying attention to Sonia, I'm not paying attention to my friends and family, but I'm more aware of how many people that I'm ignoring than ever before. I'm not sure that I like it.
If you miss a notification, you can just go back to the list from the watch face and take it from there. But you'll sometimes notice that notifications slow things down, which is a theme on the watch. It's a little underpowered. It's the same with glances, which are basically little status screens you can open from the watch face. You can quickly check your heart rate or figure out your location or look at the weather. Apps on your phone can install glances, so I can see what the top trends on Twitter are or look at mass transit options using transit. It's cool, but glances don't update in the background, so you have to wait for them to load from your phone. Anything that loads data from your phone takes a while to happen on the watch, especially if you're loading location data. If you want to send a quick message to someone, you click on the side button to open the Communications app, which is really just a favorites list. Once you pick a contact, you can either call them right from the watch, send them a text or emoji, or poke at them using Digital Touch if they also have an Apple Watch. Digital Touch is pretty cool, but it's kind of more of a demo than anything else. You can send little drawings and taps and even your heartbeat, and they'll play back in real time for your friends and then disappear. I had fun sending my heartbeat to people, but other than that, I'm mostly stuck to texting. Apple also has weird ideas about emoji. You can send the standard ones, but you can also send one of 3 animated custom images that are exclusive to the Apple Watch. I'm not sure why this smiley face has a tongue. I'm not sure why this heart is exploding, and I'm not sure why this mime's hand is giving me nightmares. This is by far the strangest part of the Apple Watch. I had a lot of fun with it, but I also think I freaked a few people out with this thirsty rando. Beyond the watch face and the Communications app, you can click the digital crown to open the home screen and launch apps. It's a world of possibility, but it's also where the watch definitely feels the slowest. Apps on the watch right now load remotely off your phone, and they feel like it. Uber and Twitter take forever to load. Anything that needs to grab location data from your phone is extremely slow, and in general, you're going to look at a lot of waiting screens. These apps also don't offer that much functionality. Think of them more like remote controls for the apps on your phone. You don't really need them. Apple says true native apps are coming later this year, and hopefully they'll do more. The Apple Watch also has Apple Pay, which lets you pay anywhere you can pay with an iPhone. You just double tap the side button and wave the watch over the payment terminal. Once you've got the watch on your wrist, all you have to do is unlock your iPhone with Touch ID and you're ready to go. That was actually pretty cool. The watch stays authenticated until you take it off, which means it's even faster than paying with an iPhone. This is Apple at its best, with hardware and software and services all working together, and it's by far my favorite feature of the Apple Watch. One of the biggest features of the Apple Watch is health tracking. It can measure your steps, it can count your calories, and it can even remind you to stand up every so often. The heart rate sensor on the back takes your pulse automatically every 10 minutes, and you can set goals for movement and exercise throughout the day. The 3 rings in the Activity app fill in as you get closer to those goals. If you hit the gym, you can open the Workout app and select from a few presets to guide you through a workout. But once you set a preset in your goals, the watch will give you little taps to mark your progress.
But it's really only geared for cardio. Walking, running, an elliptical, an exercise bike, a stair stepper, a rower. Anything that's not cardio doesn't really get picked up. So weightlifting, yoga, things that don't make your heart rate go up don't really get accurately tracked by the watch.
None of this is as advanced as other fitness devices, but it is all right there on your wrist. Apple expects third parties will build apps to expand on these basic capabilities over time, which will definitely give the Apple Watch a leg up over other platforms. But wait a minute. All of this seems really interesting as a tech gadget, but the watch is supposed to be a fashion item as well. Is it actually cool? I went and asked the fashion editors at rack.com to find out.
Is there like a lot of interest from your readers, from like young women who read a fashion magazine? Is there not a lot of interest? What's the vibe?
I think that there's a certain kind of like person who wants to know what's happening and wants to have the latest product immediately because it makes them feel really savvy. I feel like that's dissipating a little bit though. Like that person who like has to have the iPhone first, like I don't know that they're gonna feel that way about the watch.
Well, this is not luxury. It feels very much like 2 separate objects that were not designed in tandem. Like it feels like you very much have a computer sitting atop a band, which is not the point of a watch.
In terms of whether the fashion world will adopt it or not, I don't know that they're gonna adopt it as a design object. I do think this is a watch that makes you feel important, and people who work in fashion like to feel important.
Like, is this cool? Does it stand a chance of being cool?
I think that if it gets adopted all over the place, fashion people are gonna find a reason to love it, but I don't think that they're going to love it as a beautifully designed object.
I believe in the future of this. I'm not into this first version, but I believe in the future. I think there could be something here.
So that's the Apple Watch. It's so much more powerful than every other smartwatch, and it's infinitely more stylish, but it's still a smartwatch. It can do a lot, but it definitely can't replace your phone, and it really can't do much that your phone can't do. To be honest, it's a little unfocused. It's like it has half of every possible feature. It's a first real step towards what seems like a revolution in wearable computing, but it's definitely just a first step. So, should you buy it? I'm not convinced anyone actually needs a smartwatch yet, and there's nothing about the Apple Watch that really changed my mind. But there's certainly enough here to be interesting, and it's definitely the nicest smartwatch out there. But it's also one of the most expensive. So if you're going to get one, I'd only recommend the Sport model for $350 or $400. You'll get all the same functionality as the more expensive versions, and Apple's definitely going to improve the software a lot over the next few years. But spending any more money than that right now seems silly. The Apple Watch is interesting right now, but I'd bet next year's model and the one after that will be the ones to actually buy.
The Apple Watch is a huge release for the company. It's the first new product they've made since the iPad and the death of Steve Jobs. The first new product created entirely under the watch of CEO Tim Cook, and the first one that Johnny Ive, the star designer at Apple, has really created from the inside out. It is a fascinating, beautiful device, but nobody really knows if it's any good. Well, I've had one for a week, and I can tell you if it's any good. The watch is gorgeous in a surgical, sterile, sci-fi kind of way. But it is a digital watch, and several people pointed out to me that it reminded them of Casio's calculator watch, which was very popular in the 80s. It also looks a little bit like other smartwatches on the market, namely Samsung's Galaxy Gear. If I were looking at the Apple Watch in a jeweler's case next to an Omega and a Rolex and a Breitling, I don't know if I'd necessarily choose Apple's version over the others. But after wearing it for a week or so, I have started to get comfortable with it and maybe even like it a little bit. But just like any Apple product, it's not about good looks alone. This thing is packed full of advanced technology. For instance, the display has a new type of pressure sensitivity the company calls Force Touch, which responds to not just where you press on the display, but how hard you press. Also, when you get a notification on the watch, you feel an intense buzzing and sometimes almost like a tapping of a bell, and that's thanks to the Taptic engine, which controls vibrations on the watch. But most importantly, there's the digital crown, which is a new navigational method Apple's created that mimics the crown on a regular watch, but you use it on the Apple Watch for moving through lists, selecting options in apps, and zooming in and out of photos and maps. It's a pretty incredible package, and in my opinion, the most advanced piece of wearable technology you can buy right now. But of course, the Apple Watch is also a watch, and it does the job of telling you the time, just sometimes not when you want it to. You see, there are sensors in the Apple Watch that tell it when to turn on the screen and when to turn off the screen. Sometimes when you bring it up to your face to check on the time, it works perfectly, but every once in a while, it doesn't turn on. And that can be completely maddening when you just want to know what time it is. Fun fact, Apple uses something called Coordinated Universal Time to keep all of its watches in sync. It's extremely precise, and if you're in a room full of Mickey Mouse faces, all of the Mickey feet are tapping in sync. But of course, the watch is more than a watch. It's actually really powerful, but learning how to use it can take a little time. That's for two reasons. The first is that there's just a lot of new ways to interact with the watch, like the digital crown. The second is that the watch extends and sometimes replicates the functions of your phone. At first, I was having a kind of internal battle over whether I should check a notification on the watch or on the phone, but that got better with time. Just like the phone, the watch gets every notification that comes through to you. That means every email, every text message, every Twitter message pings the watch the way it pings your phone. If you're really busy and you're talking to people a lot, that becomes overwhelming really fast. What I realize is that you really have to cull your notifications and think about what's most important. Eventually, I got to a place where only the most important notifications hit my watch and everything else went to the phone. In some ways, and I'm sure Apple would not love to hear this, the watch is sort of a miniature phone on your wrist. You can make calls with it, you can send text messages with it, you can get navigation on it. In fact, it does a lot of what your phone does. But there are a few features that are brand new to the watch and brand new for Apple. Some of these new features are great, like the Activity app, which gives you this very low pressure, low effort way of tracking your exercise all day long. I found myself using this a lot and looking at it a lot and thinking about whether or not I was very healthy or terribly unhealthy. Spoiler alert, terribly unhealthy. What is great about the Apple Watch, though, is that it's got these little widgets on the display called Complications. Those can be things that tell you the weather, or when your next appointment is, or the phases of the moon. I actually found them really useful. They're one of my favorite things about the watch. And it did make me wonder why we don't have any of those things on the iPhone home screen. But some features are decidedly less successful, like the ability to send your heartbeat to somebody. This is cool if it's your wife or girlfriend, but it seems weird to send your heartbeat to anybody else, and once you've done it one time, well, you've done it. Also, you can sketch things out on the watch and send them to other watch wearers, but the screen's only 1.5 inches, so my sketches were mostly limited to weird faces and question marks. Apple's also introduced a set of 3D animated emojis, which I'm sorry to say are less expressive and interesting than regular old emojis. Finally, there's something called Glances that Apple is offering up as a new way to get information quickly on the watch. You swipe up from the bottom and you get a set of little cards. And on those cards, there's single-serving pieces of information, like the latest tweet in your timeline or your heartbeat. I kind of wanted to love these, but the problem is they're inconvenient, they're hidden, and they often have to load from the phone, so you don't get the information right away, you get a spinning wheel. I think they could be good with time, but they need a lot of work. One of the things I struggled with while using the watch was how much I looked at it, and how much I looked at it while I was in a group setting or talking to somebody. It can be very rude in mid-sentence to look down and check your watch. It's just as rude, if not more rude, than looking at your phone. If you're thinking that the Apple Watch is going to solve your distraction problem or fix notifications in your life, it's not going to. You've got to do that. It's a question of self-control. Ultimately, the watch is not life-changing. I don't even know if it's game-changing. It is a really beautiful, really well-designed, really effective Apple product. And if you love Apple products and use a bunch of them, this is a great companion. But it's not going to make you a better person or change your life or change how you look at the world. It's a great accessory. And maybe that's enough.
Ever since we got smartphones, we've been constantly bombarded with information. The Apple Watch tries to address that problem by giving you information much more quickly and more efficiently. I wanted to see if this watch could free me from my phone.
Remind me to pick up my kids at 5 o'clock.
Every new Apple product usually has some kind of amazing user interface.
Creating a reminder.
And this one has an interesting user interface, and it's sometimes a little bit complicated. I think one of the most interesting things is how it notifies you. It makes sounds, but a better feature is like a little teeny hammer. It taps your wrist in different patterns. A text message has a different tap pattern than when the phone is ringing. And the idea is that over time, you'll figure out how it's tapping you. This tap language is a very cool futuristic idea of your brain being able to process digital information without you being fully conscious about it. It's kind of merging digital technology with your body in a way that we really haven't seen before. I think the biggest challenge in the user interface is figuring out where you are in the watch. Sometimes you want to do something that works in one screen, but you're in the wrong screen, and so then you end up having to take 3 or 4 different steps. It makes text messages less intrusive because they have some customized canned responses, and you can use Siri to dictate a message.
Hey, I'm on the way.
And it's very quick, so I've found that that is a very useful feature. One of the things I was really looking forward to doing on the watch is email, but the functionality is pretty limited. You can only archive or organize the messages, and you can't respond to them. You can't even send kind of canned responses. So today, I think the watch is probably best for people who are just like me, people who are addicted to their phones and need some relief from that addiction. I'm not sure yet if it's great for people who use their phone less often, but I think we're moving toward that world. As paradoxical as it sounds, adding more technology to our bodies might free us from the smartphone, which already kind of rules our world.
This is Apple's watch. And over the last week or so, I've been wearing it and trying to work out what it's actually for, and whether it justifies a price tag that ranges from £299 to £13,500. The first thing to notice about the Apple Watch is that it looks beautiful. Apple has focused on the design in a way that no other smartwatch developer has yet. Every detail is well thought out. It charges wirelessly, and I've certainly never had a problem with it not lasting the whole day. You can change the straps from different options for fashion purposes or a plastic version for sport. And it's that balance of doing different things with the watch that makes sense from Apple's point of view. The main use for the watch, at least initially, will be as a remote control for your phone. You'll always know if your phone is ringing. You can set it up to alert you to specific messages or tweets or whatever you want, but you can also use it as a way of avoiding taking your phone out of your pocket. And it's that sense of trying to free up the user from constantly staring at their iPhone that makes the watch genuinely a step forward in a way, again, that no other smartwatch has yet achieved. The second thing Apple wants to focus on is the apps that have made the iPhone so popular, and it hopes will make the watch popular too. Taxi apps, for instance, Uber and Halo already on there, we can expect more. You can get recipes, you can get headlines, but many of those apps are not yet very well developed. So for instance, a recipe app at the moment is simply a smaller screen version of what would better be viewed on a tablet. And those taxi apps don't tell you precisely where the cab that you've just hailed is actually going to be. This is a new way for app developers to engage with customers, but it's not one that they've yet perfected. For me, it's health and well-being where the watch comes into its own. You can set it to record your workout, whether you're rowing or running or walking. It records your steps, your heart rate, how much you've been standing up, and it prompts you to exercise that little bit more. This is an area, again though, where the watch will gain more functions over time. For now, it doesn't actually do anything that other watches can't already do, but it's the first to make it look uniquely appealing. For my money, this is the first version of a genuinely important product, but it's not one that anything other than the most enthusiastic iPhone fan needs to go out and buy today.
The Apple Watch arrives with high expectations and a steep mountain to climb. It has to be both a utility device and a fashion object. It succeeds on both counts. There are, of course, a lot of choices with Apple Watch in design and style. You have 2 different sizes and a few different alloys. In this case, you're looking at the stainless steel alloy and link band. Inside is a well-crafted interface that makes it easy to, of course, tell time, but also do so much more. There are only a couple of buttons. The one that's most important is the digital crown, but it's both a button and a scroll wheel. You can use it to scroll almost to infinity in and out on maps. The maps are pulled from your iPhone's GPS, but they look exquisite on the Retina display. There's also another button which is primarily used to access notifications with your friends, Digital Touch, and also Apple Pay. There's a home screen with those apps, and once again you're using the digital crown to zoom in and out. In fact, you can zoom all the way in to launch. It has both an activity tracker that's running all the time and a workout app. Apple Watch's health capabilities tap into sensors within the watch and on your phone, and it'll constantly measure your heartbeat. For those that say the Apple Watch is too expensive, there are options going all the way down to $349, but it's not about the price. It's about the device, and it's about your fashion desires. Apple has succeeded in making a watch that people will desire.
Smartwatches finally make sense. I was initially pretty skeptical about the Apple Watch. I've tried smartwatches before, and it never quite made sense to me. Why do I need another thing buzzing, blinking, and beeping at me all day long? But the Apple Watch values your time. The screen is only big enough for the important things. After wearing this 42mm stainless steel model for the last week, the Apple Watch feels like an important new paradigm for how we use technology. The kind of big idea we expect from Apple. Smartphones gave us the awesome ability to take the internet anywhere, but they're not always productive. In fact, they become a bit like cigarettes, leaving us itching for the latest affirmations. I found that I spend 4.3 hours a day looking at my phone. The Apple Watch puts your phone in its proper place, your pocket. Our arms are in a good spot to get things done and gather data about our bodies. That's amazing. But most of us aren't very good at holding them up for an extended period of time. Apple designed its watch to respect both factors. I only look at it in bursts, rarely more than 5 seconds. It shows me the weather or a headline with one finger swipe. It gets physical, gently tapping my wrist when something important needs my attention, and lighting up when I lift my arm to look. It even gives me a nudge when I've been sitting too long. Wearing one has made me more present. I'm less likely to obsess over my phone or leave it on the table during supper. Why a new paradigm, though? The Apple Watch's success isn't measured by how much its apps and services suck you in, but by how efficiently they help you get things done. Living on your arm is part of that efficiency, as a convenient display, but also a nice way to measure your heart rate or pay at a cash register. That doesn't mean this first Apple Watch will appeal to all iPhone owners, or even a significant fraction of them. It's on Apple to make it slimmer, with a battery that lasts longer, and enough power to run important functions like maps more smoothly. And it's up to app developers to come up with some great new ideas and show us everything a smartwatch can be. I'd like for it to be my train ticket and my office ID badge for starters. Using the Apple Watch requires learning a whole new sign language, not to mention a whole new etiquette. Is it socially acceptable to talk to my wrist? Hey, can you hear me? Or how about checking out your boo's heartbeat during board meetings? For now, the Apple Watch is for pioneers. I won't be paying the $1,000 it costs for this version. However, I will pay the $400 it costs for the 42mm Apple Watch Sport. To me, that's worth the price for admission to a front row seat of what's next in tech.